Welcome to episode 28 of the All Things Arb podcast with me, Tom Alexander, and today I'm joined by Adam Hope of Adrian Hope Tree Services based here in Ledbury. You are in the middle of nowhere, sir.
We certainly are, yeah.
Why is it that I always pick a guest that is either 2 hours down south or in such a remote location where you have to go, right, here's the pin drop. The second you went the pin drop, it was like, right, I'm following coordinates. Am I going to come out alive? You start thinking of that place. But we've just had a little tour of the facility.
Yep.
You've got a very big toy outside that I was not expecting to see.
Yes. It's keeps our name about, and people do comment on it quite a bit. So
what is it for people who are listening?
So we've got a Scania 6-wheeler timber lorry. It's all sort of sign written up and drive. So that's my sort of toy to drive around in.
Your daily driver.
My daily driver, yeah.
So let's get into the podcast because we've got a lot of time to play with today. So I'll start off by saying you've caught me out of my first question already, which is a little bit embarrassing. But because I've been listening for a podcast recommendation for anyone else, the High Performance podcast by Jake Humphrey and his co-host, I can't remember his name of still.
No, I can't actually either, but he's a doctor of some description.
Yeah, I think he sits down with people and gets into the head, say you can do this, you can be a high performer.
Yeah.
So one of his questions that he starts off with is, what does high performance mean to you?
Yeah.
And I'm going to nick that question, and I'm going to now ask people, what does arboriculture mean to you?
What does arboriculture mean? It's, I suppose, I'd see it as like the maintenance of trees, but personally, it's an industry that I love. It gives me I enjoy the challenges that it brings. No 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
You keeps you fit, keeps you moving around, and yeah, it really does. I think it's that thing of just no 2 days are the same, no 2 trees are the same. Everything's always a challenge. You've got to think about everything all the time.
So what did you do before you actually went, I'm going to look at arboriculture as a full-time job? What was it like you grew up to beforehand?
So I went to university, went to Arb and did a degree in land management. So a lot of my sort of contemporaries there went on to become sort of chartered surveyors, that sort of thing. But I was doing the degree and I never thought sitting in an office was for me. And I'd been had involvements in the family business sort of when I was younger, like sort of working the odd days and sort of always been around it and sort of always been interested in it, but never sort of thought it was my career path. But then when I was at university, decided, no, that is something that really interests me, and found that I kept getting drawn back towards it. So yeah, finished university, got my degree, and then came back into the family business and into the industry.
Because I never really thought as tree surgeons go to university as such, because we all go to college, we get our tickets, and they go, right, we can go use a chainsaw anywhere. And then you got that next level of like the consultancy aspect of the industry where people go and get the level 4, level 5s. They get like all the names, all the little abbreviations after the names, and I'm going, yeah, but can you still climb a tree as good as me? No, you can't. So like when did you, because it's a little bit of a different story, because obviously you went to Harper Adams and then you're like, because this isn't your business, is it? It's your dad's, well, your mum and dad's technically.
Yeah.
And they didn't want you to not come into the business, but they were like, look, we really want you to go somewhere. We don't want you having to fell trees all the time. We want you to go to the next level. And you were fighting to get into it because you're like, look, this is what I really want to do. I'm more interested in going to use a chainsaw than going, right, do I need a Mont Blanc pen or do I need something else to write with this week in the office? So when is it that you went, right, I'm done with university, I'm ready to get started into the business? When did you then become as part of the business and join it?
So that was 2013. So summer 2013, graduated from university and then came back into the business sort of pretty much straight away from then. And then I did my tickets, sort of climbing tickets and stuff on short courses over the next sort of 12 months, sort of 2 years after coming into the business. So got my qualifications that way, and started sort of at the bottom really, hopefully, and put my shift in on climbing, and still climbing at the moment as well. So
So were you able to have that relationship with the groundies and with the climbers without the attachment of my dad owns the company? Or would they always like, don't say there's a case, Adam says something?
Depends. You might have to. You'll probably get a different answer from them than you would from me. But no, I think like generally the guys were brilliant. You're aware that there's always going to be an element of that. There's no getting away from that. My way of trying to sort of counteract it was I'm just going to work harder and show that I'm willing to do it, because I didn't want any of that, like, oh, he's not doing that because he's a boss's son, or he's not doing that, or he gets away with that because he's the boss's son, sort of thing. So no, I was I'd like to, might have to ask them, but I'd like to think I was putting my fair share in and above it, really, putting the hours in.
So how many, because I know you're still on the tools to this day, but how many years were you on the tools before you had that conversation with your dad to say, look, I want to start doing a little bit more within the business?
Quite a few years, really. I mean, it's been the sort of the last sort of two and a half years that I've sort of stepping away of being on the tools full time, doing a bit more of the sort of management or sort of side of the business. So yeah, a good sort of 6-7 years really sort of out grafting. But I think it's really important because I still want to keep climbing, because I think it's really important, because like running a business, you need to know how the jobs work. Like when you're going out and pricing stuff, you need to know. We need to know how long the job's going to take, don't you? It's the fundamentals of it. Yeah. So
you're able to take that experience of going to a job site and going, right, that's a narrow doorway as such into the garden. We're not getting the chipper back here. To build the little bits and bobs of that only I don't like the terminology, like only the workers would say compared to the office staff, because there's always that difference of, well, they do the invoices, they chase all the money and everything, but they never go and get boots on the ground to see what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Where being a business owner / employee of running it, you can go to the job site and you're there from start to finish. So when you don't down tools effectively, but you go, right, I need to go into the office side, and you're teaching the office staff going, right, look, this job isn't a £400 job. It's not as easy as that. We need to look at bringing extra equipment. We need to look at contacting the right people to make this job go forward. People who sit in the office, I'm going to get slated for this if there's any consultants listening, they just get to see, okay, Google Maps has said it's this tree. They've gone out, they've looked at it and went, yeah, it's this. And then the lads get there on the ground going, well, we're not brought any of the kit that we needed because we got told something different. So that's where you bring a lot of experience into the office side of things going forward. What was the biggest difference from being on the tools full time to being in the office a little bit more?
I suppose it's that you have to stop eating as much. Because
I'm going to breathe in again.
Yeah, after you get sort of sat in the car or the truck driving around sort of pricing stuff. It's not that physical exercise, but I suppose it's challenging. It's challenging in different ways. You're sort of thinking about stuff like you said, you're thinking ahead. What do I need on that job? What's that going to be? What equipment do we need on site? How is the job actually going to be done? So you're sort of thinking ahead of yourself all the time, rather than sort of turning up saying, right, this is actually what we've got to do. And spending your life on the phone, chasing people, phoning around, getting prices off for different people then chasing you for prices. You spend a lot of time on the phone.
Yeah, and you go, you know what, it's just easy. I turn up, I climb a tree, I get to go home at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I turn up in the office, I work out 7 in the morning till 7 at night, and I go, I've not made any difference.
No.
So what is your day-to-day roles are now then?
So a bit of a mixture really. So still out climbing sort of a couple of days a week generally. Driving the lorry is the one sort of thing out and around doing that as well. So that's been a bit of a change, big change sort of in the business, and also for me, I couldn't be a full-time lorry driver, but traffic on the road does do your head in. But so do lorry driving when that's required on site, or picking up timber from sites that we've already done that's got sort of timber left that needs moving, and then a couple of days sort of out pricing work, looking at work, say doing risk assessments, putting paperwork together and quotes and things like that really.
What is your favourite task to do?
Favourite task? Yeah. I do enjoy the lorry driving, I think, but I think it's still a nice tree to climb. There's no beating that really, is there? Sort of be a nice big open like cedar to deadwood or something like that is like on a nice sunny day. There's nothing better in the world, is there really?
For me, just a down the chipper, a nice easy drag, nothing too heavy, nothing too much. Of just go in it goes chip, in it goes chip. I'm a lazy tree surgeon nowadays, but yeah, just like down the chipper is just nice and easy for me. Did you have any misconceptions when you went, oh, I'm going to be in the office a little bit more?
I thought it would be. Well, I suppose it's yes. I think, isn't it? You don't realise how long stuff takes, or how much sort of stuff does go on behind the scenes in the office. It is that chasing of people, spending time on the phone, putting stuff together. You don't fully appreciate that how long stuff takes or how time consuming paperwork is. And I don't think there's anyone that likes doing paperwork, and it does just take time, and it's been then there's no getting away from that. There's sort of no easy out of that option, so it's got to be done.
Have you been able to explain to the lads, like, look, it is getting done, it is in the office, it just takes ages to get anything done?
Yeah, I think I would like to think they sort of I suppose they don't see any hold ups. They just sort of we like to sort of make things as efficient as possible. So there's nothing that the office isn't holding them up doing anything. So hopefully they don't see anything from that sort of side. But yeah, sometimes we're just like, just bear with us a little bit.
Are you happy you made that decision to reduce your time on the tools and be a bit more office based, just to broaden your horizons and go, I can give a lot more into the business instead of being a grounder or a climber? I think
it's that thing, isn't it? Like I suppose the thing is, it's a way of pushing the business forward, eventually, like, the mum and dad will retire out of the business. The business will need to change, need to move on from them. So it's making that transition, which is exciting, because it gives me opportunities to do things and sort of push things in sort of whatever direction, sort of not whatever direction I want, but sort of where the industry is going, really, I think.
So another question that you caught me out on as well. What are your non-negotiables? What do people have to buy into to come and work for Adrian Hope Tree Services?
So my thing on that would be effort. I think I don't mind if you've not got the skill set. We can teach you the skill set. You can, but if you're willing to put the effort in to learn, or to put the effort in, work hard, that's got to be there. Because you can learn everything else, but you can't teach somebody not to be lazy. It's that
self-motivation, because I've taught lads on who have been working as like a plumber. This how long ago I last had lads working for me, where they were working in a completely different industry. I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know how to use a chainsaw. In this case, well, can you get here at 7:30 in the morning? Well, yeah, probably. Like, can you drag that brash? Yeah, right. Can you carry that log? Yeah, I can teach you the rest of it.
Yeah,
it's not hard, but it puts so many people off at going, well, it's a bit of a dangerous industry, and the money isn't great. But now, I don't know what's gone on in the last couple of years, there's not as many lads freelancing in the industry anymore, so prices have gone up quite a fair bit. I know groundies who are on 24 grand a year, who are brand spanking new out of college, and I'm going, I used to go on 24 grand, and I was a team leader at one stage going, oh Christ, it's changed a little bit. One question I've never asked anyone, I'm a big book person. If you see my bookshelf, you think it's a miniature library. But like, there's hardly any Arb related books whatsoever, apart from a Collins Tree guide, the technical guides from the Arb Association, which is why we're here, to talk about the Arb Association a little bit. Is there any books that you've read and they've made a difference to you as a person, or you've been able to share the wisdom on from that book?
Is there books? Some of the, I suppose, like tree books, some of the stuff that Matek does, and I think what I really like about his stuff is it just simplifies things so well, and I mean, it's in cartoons, so it's I think some of the Matek stuff has been, you sort of read, you can pick that up, and it gives you a really good sort of understand the sort of, I suppose, the fundamentals of trees and how things work. So yeah, that would be a recommendation for anybody really.
Brand new to the industry, recommend me the top 3 books.
So it's, I'm going to struggle on the names now. It's Body Language of Trees.
Yeah.
There's the one by Alex Shigo as well is.
I can never remember any of his books.
I'm trying to think of the.
People are now going, it's this.
Is this? I know.
Tell me the book. It's what the book is.
So yeah, Matek and Shigo, and then the Collins Tree Guide is just like that's got to be a staple for anybody really. It's going to have everything. Well, not every tree in it, but 90% of what we see.
Yeah, 90% of the trees that we see around here, like ash, oaks.
Yeah,
like,
so
you can get away with it.
That one's going to have to be on there as well.
So the main reason we're here, the Arb Association. I'm not getting flack. This isn't an episode of where we're going to, excuse my French, shit on the Arb Association. It's a different point of view. Because me and you have been talking for quite a while over the past couple of months, and you sent me a message saying, "Oh, we used to be Arb Association registered, and now we're not." And now I don't know anyone who was registered and then left. So when did the business go, right, we're at that level now, because you are like a level up above everyone else. When you walk around the yard, you're not your 3-man band. You've got some serious kit out there. So it gets to that point where you go, right, we need to work on larger commercial contracts. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions to work commercially and to work for like the National Trust or like any of the housing builders, you need to have that special AA badge. And that's where I think the Arb Association have said to people, well, if you want to work on these contracts, you need to be Arb Association registered. And I know that's not the truth. You know that's not the truth. And a lot of people in the industry know it's not the truth. So I'll go back to me, start the question, but I'll start ranting again. What stage did you go, right, we need to join the AA? What was the process and all that?
So I wasn't in the business when we first became Arb Approved. It was 2009 when Mum and Dad took the business through the Arb Approved process. Yeah. They've been thinking about it for a few years before that, leading up to it, and obviously it is quite a difficult process to go through and quite a time-consuming process to go through. So they decided that the business was at a level and that it had. And for those reasons that you said, the thought was it shows you're a level up. You're gonna be able to win more work because of it. You're gonna get the type of contracts that we wanted to get or type of work that we wanted to get as a result of it. So it was seen as that's the step that the business needs to make to go to that next level. So they decided that so 2009 we first became Arb Approved.
So about the process, because you've got to renew it every year still?
Yeah, every 2 years you have like an inspection on it, yeah.
So when you came into the business, already Arb Approved, the next inspection came round. Sorry, what was it like for your first inspection of being part of the business at that stage?
It's a bit, it's quite nerve-wracking day. They come up, they come on site, they go through everything. A lot of stuff submitted beforehand in terms of paperwork and stuff like that. So they've already seen and ensured that's sort of up to scratch. They come and look around the premises, look at you have to show them certain examples of work that's been done. There's like a list of criteria, different jobs you have to show them. And then they come and work on it. They come and look at a live work site as well. So that live work site it's quite nerve-wracking. Yeah. Sort of the lads being on site, and I've been there working on site when you've been inspected. It's sort of like it's like being back at school with a teacher coming around to test you. So it's but you make sure that you know what you should be doing. So
you bring your A game on that.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a sort of a nerve-wracking day, but then the job is sort of tailored to the inspection process, if you sort of know what I mean.
So again, there's going to be misconceptions, there's going to be facts, and there's going to be, I'm not quite sure on this. We are getting the Arb Association on. We are going to have John come on the podcast and not defend himself, but just clear up of any misconceptions that I have or any of our listeners have. So one of the misconceptions, maybe true or false, take it with a pinch of salt. Do your own research and all of this, because a lot of people, they either like the Arb Association or they hate them. For me, everyone thinks I don't like them. I just don't understand what they do for the industry, and that's been my stance since day one. One of the misconceptions I've had is if you run a team, like you've got a couple of crews, they only come out and vet one team of lads, and then they pass the whole entire company. Was that the case that you had, or did they go out with individuals? With individual teams as such?
Yeah, no, that is true. So, like on the inspection, they come and look at one work site or one live work site. So they can, I think if I'm right, they can ask to go to other sites if they're not happy with the site that the type of job, because there's some criteria of the type of job that of things on the work site they've got to see. So in terms of like they've got to see examples of rigging and things like that. So you can't just turn up with a straight.
We're doing a pruning job today, lads.
So they've got certain things and if they're not happy with it, they can ask to go and see another site. But all of our inspections were only one. Like they visited one work site, which was generally one gang working. So that is the case,
because there's like really big contractors out there that are associated, and you go around, you see their work, and you go, "How the heck are they approved?" Because you look at it, and we've been asked a few times, because I always go, "Look, what questions do you want to ask guests and all that stuff," and it's always come up saying, "Well, they go to just vet one team." Right, you just get all your best candidates, stick them on that for the day, and you pass with flying colours, while the rest of the lads are going, "We're Arb Approved." Oh, great, right. Drop cuts, like hack this one to death. Would you like to see them basically go out and go, right, you've got 3 teams of 3, right? They're with you on the Monday, they're with you lot on the Tuesday, they're with you lot on the Wednesday. Do you think the businesses would all still pass, or there'd be a lot more like, you've got to go back and do this, you need to look at this, he could do with improving his training as such? Because I don't think it's fair just to pass one group of lads when you could get a lot of creative criticism back to say, look, these people, stick him back on a pruning course, he's a little bit rusty.
I agree completely. I think that that is the case, and I think that you hear it. I mean, you see work around of Arb Approved contractors, and you think, that's not brilliant. And you hear the stories of people getting in subbies just for the day of the inspection and stuff like that to get through it. So I do think that and don't get me wrong, I am a fan, and I think that there should be an industry standard. I think we should have an accreditation, or we should have a scheme in the industry that shows a certain level, a benchmark of working. And I think that the business in that should be looked more as a whole, because again, like some companies, they say they've got 2 or 3 gangs, could be one gang's nowhere near the standard of the other one, or those lads aren't at the standard, and so I think it does need to be a bit more taken as a whole business rather than just that one sort of snapshot.
Because could it be right? The company's approved, but the employees need to do like a secondary test or a secondary accreditation to then be accrued. And that's something that they can carry around with themselves.
Yeah, I think that's because that's something like I've talked to other people about that, and I think that something like that would be really good in the industry. So like if almost like you would be like an individual approved, or an individual sort of like as a standard, and you could be then, so they say you then take that to your, like if you change jobs or whatever, you can take that to your next employer and go like, I'm working at this level, because once you've got your tickets out of college, there's no way of saying how good you are, is there really? You can say, I've got 10 years experience, I've got 5 years experience, I've got 2 years experience. And
well, everyone's had it. We've had lads work for us who said, I've got 10 years experience, and you go, you've just dropped that shit on the fence. That's not 10 years experience. You would have put a bit more thought into it.
Yeah, so I think, and from an employer's point of view, I think that would be brilliant if you could say you've got somebody sort of comes to you sort of off a job advert, and you could say, I'm working at this level. Yeah. So like an individual sort of scheme, I think would be really good. And I mean, it's obviously going to be a difficult thing to achieve from a sort of actual process, but I don't think it's impossible. And I think that
no, again, it always comes down to the old excuse. Well, how much is it going to cost me? That's what it always comes down to. Am I going to get the work in that you lot have hinted that I'm going to get the work in to do it with? Every time we come around this 2-year renewal, did you speak to the lads and say, right, do we want to go for this again? Do we want to go through all the traumatic experience to over-exaggerate? Were they always behind it, or did some of them go, that's not really doing anything for us?
Yeah, we did it. We had conversations with them about like when we possibly like when we just made this decision not to carry on with the scheme. We had conversations with the lads, sort of their thoughts on it, and I suppose we came. They like it was always a bit of an inconvenience because it was a harder, well, not harder day. It was, but yeah, you're being sort of tested, and you sort of think, why? Well, from their point of view, possibly it's like, well, why are we doing this? They don't necessarily see the benefit of it. That's sort of more of a.
Well, that's where you go back to if they had individual status for each of them. You'd then go, well, it's a bit of a badge of honour instead of looking at the badge of honour on the side of the van each day.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing. Like the business being like, okay. I suppose it's that thing of pride. We work for a business that is Arb Approved. There's still an element of that, and that was it wasn't a decision we took lightly. Not to carry on with it.
Does the commercial aspect of the industry still go, oh look, the tree guys are here?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, that is it, isn't it? You just sort of oh, you're the tree folks. You're the tree bloke. Yeah.
So with the commercial aspect, I've only done a very small amount of commercial stuff before I shut up shop. Are you asked, because you're always asked for like your RAMs, all that stuff. You're asked for your chase, Chaz or Chase, whatever it is off the top of my head. Did you then go, have you got your Arb Association?
No, so that is the short answer to it. That was one of the reasons that was sort of one of the reasons for not carrying on with the scheme, is because that you were sort of initially it was sold this thing. Oh, if somebody asks to see all your paperwork or your certificates, you say, oh no, I'm Arb Approved, and they don't, and that sort of is your one ticket to everything sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is it doesn't work like that, and they'll go, oh brilliant, but we don't know what that is, and so we still want to see all your tickets, your copies of insurance, etc., your risk assessment method statements, and so you end up doing that paperwork regardless of whether you're Arb Approved or not. So we still have to have all that in place. So yeah, not being Arb Approved hasn't meant that we can sort of cut corners on that side of it. And people will say, oh well, if you've got to do the paperwork, why don't you just carry on being Arb Approved? But there's other things involved with it that tie up things that you don't need to do if you're not Arb Approved.
So commercial aspect of the industry still needs educated. Sorry. I won't even get started on the domestic side of things. So if I always refer it to plumber because it's so much easier. So you wouldn't get someone in who isn't gas safe registered.
No.
But that's so well known. Like I know if it's wrong, it's going to blow your house up. Well, if you fell a tree wrong, it's going to fall on your house. It's still just as bad damage. What can the industry do as a whole to get to that level where you knock on the door, you say, hello, Mrs. Higgins, and that person goes, oh yeah, by the way, can I just check your qualifications? Because I certainly wouldn't let some random person come into the house and go, oh, you're working on my boiler? Well, just gas safe register, right, numbers, right, all that matches, okay, because I'd feel a lot reassured by going, right, he's been trained to that standard, where I've come out of college, my friends have come out of college, but we both fell trees very differently. You look at a plumber and the work's always to the high, you just know it's to a high standard. There's you can cut a lot of corners in tree care. And that's where you go, well, I'm Arb Approved, and you as a business owner would then go, right, all lads are at the top of the game, the felon cut's perfect, this is in place. But again, it comes back down to, well, they're only checking that one team of lads going out. The rest of the company could still be suffering, which then goes domestic side. People don't know what it is.
No, and I think that's sort of one of the things that the whether public need like sort of educating on it, or it needs some promote, like it needs the scheme and our position are very good at promoting it sort of within the industry, but not necessarily externally, and actually educating people on that this is a level of standard, and that is, and because that's the ultimate goal, is you want it the equivalent of sort of gas safe or something like that, isn't it? And that whether that's the approved contract scheme or another sort of level, you want sort of your Mrs. Doris next door to go, oh yeah, well I'll only use a contractor that's got that level of qualification. So it needs more promotion externally to the public, and actually showing what it's why it's there, and educating people outside of it, and and also in business environments, like other businesses, building for like firms and things like that, sort of need educating on, or saying that this is actually this is a level.
Yeah.
These are guys that you should be looking out for, because like you wouldn't go onto a building site without any of those levels, would you? So
yeah, it's just like a TV campaign. That's what I've always thought. Like, because you always see the like rated people. Oh, what's the other one? Like these trusted trader type services, and what's that? What's the most common one everyone knows about?
it's
Checker Trade. Checker Trade, that's it. Like Checker Trade do their checks. Like Checker Trade have done more checks on a tree surgeon than what, like you say, Mrs. Doris will, or even like what the Arb surgeon obviously to do their checks. But more people would rather go, I've got Checker Trade status, then I've got Arb Approved status, and there's not as much paperwork to go through to be Arb Approved as such.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think that and you need it. We just need an industry standard that is really well recognised around.
Did you hear about the other standard that came in this TCA 2020?
No, not.
No, so
across that.
So there's a guy called Dr. Keith Jones, because I asked this question ages ago because I can't find him now.
Right.
So it was equivalent to the Arb Association standard, but with a lot less paperwork, and more of the construction industry already knew about it,
right?
But it didn't exist as such. And it was called the TCA like 2020 scheme or something. And this guy just came up with it, wanted to try and make a bit of money, but it made that much of an impact where builders already knew about it before they knew anything about the Arb Association aspect.
Yeah, so it can be done. It can be. It is possible.
Does the AA need opposition, the right word as such? Like competition?
I don't know. Well, I suppose my question to that would be, is that, are the association actually the right body to be maintaining the contractor scheme? In that, I'm not here just to slate the Arb Association. I think they do a lot of really good work, and I think some of the stuff that some of the like webinars and stuff they produce are brilliant, and they're if you want to learn about some of the tree biology stuff, so things they produce are brilliant. But the association almost need to decide, like, who are we representing? Are we representing consultants, or are we representing contractors? Because I think that as contractors, they don't represent us very well.
Yeah, I think that's the understanding of a lot of the industry, because I've spoken to the Arb Association. They are making big changes, because I've always referred them to the old boys club, where the consultants go and they're like, look at us, we're the consultants of the industry, we'll make these changes and everyone else follows. And it's got to that point where the contractors are going, well, until I'm in my 50s and want to become a consultant, the Arb Association doesn't mean anything to me. It's one of those topics. I'm trying to not hate on them too much, but it's got to that point in the last couple of years where even I go, I don't recommend anyone to go Arb Approved, because the commercials don't know about it, the domestics don't know about it. What can you even remember what it costs to go through the process?
I can't remember off the top of my head, like the actual sort of like financial cost, the financial cost. I can't off the top of my head, but there is quite a big cost to the business, because it does tie up quite a lot of time.
I think that's what people forget. Like, I'm just sat in the office doing the paperwork.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're doing that while your lads are out funding for you to do the paperwork. It soon adds up.
So that's where I see that I suppose that it's that time cost to the business. So you've got to, so for the business to go through that, you've got to see some benefit from it.
Yeah.
And we got to the point of, we sort of sat down and had conversations and said, look, we don't see us as a business actually getting any benefit out of being this. So,
is that where the relationship started to go a bit sour for you, to go, we're doing this every 2 years? Like, no one in our area knows who you are. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, I don't know if we're like sour relationships, a bit of a strong word. Like, we had it was Paul Smith at the time, and we had conversations with Paul about it, and we're very open with him, and sort of voiced our concerns to him, and sort of said, talked him through our reasonings. So it was an open sort of dialogue with them, and when we sort of took the decision, Jed sort of said, yeah, we're not going to renew, really.
Were there a lot of changes each time they come round to find, I wouldn't say like more faults of the business, but more places for you to improve that you didn't realise needed improving?
Yeah, over the time, like I suppose the industry moves on each couple of years. There's new things, new legislations come out, new things got to be invariably added, more paperwork into the process. But yeah, there was always sort of different things that they picked up on each time. I mean, the actual tree work part of it didn't really change too much over the years, but it was that, yeah, the sort of the background or the behind the scenes stuff that does change. It was sort of, you need a new policy for this, you need a new policy for that.
Because I got there now and I've looked at the wall and went, you've got a lot of posters on your wall. I've never seen that poster before. What's that one? Was there anything that the Arb Association did that you just didn't agree with?
I think, so one of the biggest things that I think, like personally, where I think they've really sort of let themselves down, that's been recent, and I know you've talked a lot about it, is the like two rope working stuff. I think that, and let's not go into whether we actually want to agree with it or not, that sort of, but what I think, where I think that they should have done more, they should have backed I don't feel that they backed the industry up very well. I feel that they should have, they didn't give contractors support. They sort of just said, the HSC have said this, and like, because at the end of the day, all of a sudden the HSC, or we were like, right, you've got to do two rope working.
Yeah.
There was no guidance straight away from the Arb Association. So like, guys were like, we were like, oh, we should be doing this, but we haven't got no idea how we should be doing it. No one's been trained on this. Like if you said to anyone off the street said, you need to go and do a job, but in a working way that nobody's been trained on, they would be, that's like madness.
Yeah.
So
it was the lack of communication that got me to go, they weren't a major influence in it. HSC said, you've meant to have been doing this for donkey's years and you haven't. And it came up to the deadline, and we look at the Arb Association as like our father of the industry, to say like, we look at you because you made yourself the governing body as such. If we need anything, we want to be able to turn to you. And a lot of people turn to them and they went, oh yeah, we're coming out with something in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months. And it was a bit like, well, okay, right, you're doing it for free for me as such. You're like, you're going to make a book, I'm going to buy the book, I'm going to look at it. But there were contractors on sites that left on a Friday, come back on a Monday and got told, you're not doing it correctly. And then you go, all right, I'm off down to Honeys to go and spend another 500 quid on equipment. Well, what do I need to do? And then it was not that long after, the colleges finally rolled over to doing full-time two rope work in it. And it was a case of going, okay, we're a little bit lost. And then I can't give them hate on this at all, because no one knew about COVID. But again, everyone looked at them going, right, COVID, like, where's the guidelines? Where's all of this stuff? And they worked as quickly as possible. But you looked at some of the guidelines and went, okay, that's not feasible, without putting silly amounts of restrictions in. The best one, that I don't know if it was from the Arb Association or someone just randomly came up with it, was to basically send your lads in single vehicles to a job site. That was like, okay, so I've got 9 vans turning up on one job site. Okay, fair enough. Like the next time something changes in the industry, more and more people will want to look at the Arb Association. I really hope they're at that stage. It seems they're getting to that stage where something will happen and the Arb Association will be like, here's your answer. Bang on, that's what you want to go for. Because I want to see the Arb Association be better. I want the industry to be as accredited as a gas safe engineer or such. Because you get a bit pissed when you turn up on a job site and go, oh, tree lad's here. And you go, oh, just the tree lad. Right, I'm having to sort all of this out so you can come in and build all your houses and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think they're not, you sort of alluded to it a bit there, they're very reactive rather than be proactive on stuff. Like we should have, if the HSE, well, it was 2005, wasn't it? So like, but surely then somebody at the Arb Association 10 years ago should have gone, hang on, we're not compliant to these rules. How do we then make sure that the industry is compliant to these rules?
So what was the decision for you that went, right, we're no longer going to renew the following year?
We spoke to a few of our clients. and sort of said, like, had conversation with them and said, look, we're thinking, well, we said, look, if we are no longer Arb approved, will we no longer be able to work with you, essentially? So, and we didn't have anyone come back and say, no, we'll no longer use you. So, because if somebody turned around and said, yeah, we'll no longer use you, you've got to be Arb approved, we would have carried on with the scheme. But nobody came back and said, oh yeah, you've got to be Arb approved. So we weren't going to lose any, and we haven't lost any work as a result of not going back through it. So,
did you gain any work
when we were actually in the scheme?
Yeah.
It's a really difficult one to actually say yes or no to, because I suppose like it's like do any sort of marketing, isn't it? How, like, unless somebody goes, oh yeah, I saw you on that, or specifically says it, it's very difficult to judge it. I don't think there was any tenders or anything that we went to that said you have to be Arb approved. It's a difficult one to sort of say, oh yeah, we got work as a result of it, or we didn't get any work because we weren't. So it's a difficult one to say.
What would have to change for you to go back to being Arb approved?
I think if the standard was better and better maintained, in like you said, like possibly looking at more of the business as a whole rather than just an individual gang. If it was the more contractor focused, or the rather than sort of being quite a generic, like sort of more support for the contractor, really, I suppose that's what we're looking for. And then if you felt that you were going to get that support, then it'd be something that you wouldn't hesitate. Or if the scheme was promoted to a level that people were then going, you could only get work because you were an approved contractor, you would have no hesitation of going back to it. And like, I would like to see that personally. I think it would be brilliant if work was going out and people were saying, we will only deal with approved contractors, or whatever sort of level.
It'd bump up the rates as well.
It would, and it would make sure that people are all working to a similar standard, or at least there's a base level when you're competing like for like, is I suppose the main thing.
Okay. What did you like about the Arb Association?
What did I like? I think it's nice. I think it is. What is nice is it's that it is a bit of a badge of honor. It shows that you are working to a standard, and you're like, that's nice in whatever you're doing, isn't it? That somebody says, yeah, you are at a certain standard. So it's nice to have that sort of on there, but it just sort of, I suppose, it lost a bit of that appeal towards the end.
Did it bring the office a bit more in like order? Because I know, like, trying to have systems in place and all that stuff, it's always been, just for me, it was always a nightmare to go, right, quotes are out, invoices are out, right, oh yeah, I need to do that. Did they bring in like any like checklists for you that made it a bit smoother as such?
I suppose there was things that they brought that you had to do, which we still do now, and we'll carry on, because it made things like certain checks on like equipment and things like that, and it makes sure you're doing all that. I wouldn't say there's anything that sort of streamlined the office as such, but it was there's processes that it did bring that we carry on doing, and we will carry on using, and they're very good and like they do produce a lot of resources in terms of like examples of risk assessments, specific and that sort of site specific and generic and things like that, and they produce a lot of documentation that you can use templates for. So that, from that side of it, it is very good.
So is that where your personal opinion you'd go, that's where they've smashed it?
Yeah, they do well on bringing sort of examples or generic versions of stuff out that you can then use as a template, because and that's what you wanted from a governing body, isn't it? You wanted someone to be able to turn to and say, and like, because somebody goes, I've not got a clue how to write a risk assessment. Yeah. So how do I? Because you don't get taught how to write a risk assessment in college. You get taught how to
fill one out.
Yeah, but like, it's like, how do I actually put one together? So and that's what you want from a governing body. You need that sort of guide, and that's what I suppose that's what you look to a governing body for, isn't it? For that guidance. Mm-hmm. So from that point of view, on the paperwork side of stuff, they do some pretty good stuff.
Because for me, they've been around for a lot longer than I have. But it just feels like they've never been at that stage where you can turn around and you can say, I've got this, and they just seem to go, here's your answer for it. I think where they're lacking is just the marketing aspect. It's just so contractors know, and most importantly, homeowners know as well. I think once it gets to that level, more people will go, you know what, I want to be part of the top 1% of the industry.
Yeah.
I play with all the big people in the industry. And it, as a owner, it'd give you that satisfaction to go, I meet these standards. Because right now, you can go out, you can cut the tree down, no one's going to say anything to you. On the rare occasion, the tree officer's going along at exactly the same time you're doing that tree, no one's going to say anything. And the customers don't know any difference. The customer doesn't know what BS 3998 2010 stands for. It's like they just go, yeah, it looks nice. It's like the customer always wants a perfectly ball-shaped tree. I go, well, no, that's not what's best for the tree.
No.
This is what we need to do on it. So where do they need to change? Where do they need to change going forward?
I think you're right. I think marketing needs to promote the scheme more to the public and to make it more widely known. And I think if it was more widely known, you get more contractors on board with it, because people would see it as a requirement to getting work. And I think that they need to offer more. I think it's more support for the contractor, feeling like they're on the side of the contractor rather than fighting. Like at the moment, it sometimes feels like you're fighting as contractors. We're fighting against them, whereas like you want to feel support by them rather than fighting against them, if that makes sense.
Right, so just before we end the podcast, the famous brown book, which everyone who's been on the podcast for the last couple of episodes has wrote a question in it.
Yep.
And I finally remembered it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you all the questions that they've come to me with.
Okay, yeah.
Because there's a couple of good ones. So going back to when we did the podcast with David from ETC. Basically, what we do is the last guest on the podcast writes a question in the brown book for their next guest to come on the podcast, but they don't know who it is. So it's a bit of a surprise. Some will be relevant and others will be like, that's a bit of a random question. So this one's from David from ETC. What has changed your working life the most in your career?
Personally, from me, is that when the business bought a timber lorry, that's revolutionised our business. That's changed it massively.
What made you buy it? I never asked. I did say I have another question. What made you buy the timber lorry? Because it's not a small investment.
No, we got a lot of timber sort of like producing off jobs, and we were getting that moved by other hauliers. And we were like, we needed a way of moving timber around ourselves, and we debated for ages going down the route of like tractors and trailers and that sort of thing. But in the end, we sort of like, we looked at it, and actually we got operators licenses already because of the other tippers we've got. So that wasn't a limiting factor for us. And we were like, you can drive it further on the road, etc. than tractors. So
because you got some butts in that yard that would not fit in the back of a 7.5 tonner. Because I looked at them going, what have you been felling lately? Christ. And the next one's from Ben from the SoTrack podcast. If you need a tracker, reach out to SoTrack. Mention ALLTHINGSARB, you might get a bit of a discount, but I won't hold Ben to that. If you could change one key decision you have made in the last 12 months of business, what would you change and why?
In the last 12 months, decisions. There's probably, what I would have done is bought vehicles before they came impossible to get hold of. That's probably actually in the last 12 months. Yeah, I mean, we've got stuff on order as well, we're just waiting months for. So it would have been nice to for seeing that sort of shortage coming in. So and yeah, got vehicles before, sort of because things are in desperate need of being changed, and we just can't get hold of anything at the moment.
What's the next big toy investment for the company?
I've got a nice long list, really. It's everyone's got a long list. I don't know. I think we need to look down the route of either something mechanical, sort of felling operation, mutes, that sort of thing. Because at the moment that's sort of stuff that we just hire in still, but we're going to need to use that. Well, we're using it more and more now, so that's something that we need to bring in our own stuff. And
last question from the Brown Book is from Dan from George Brown's. What's a life skill from Arb that you use in everyday life?
Life skill. I suppose like problem solving. because it is like we said at the start, like no two trees are the same. You're always, as a climber particularly, you're always thinking, like, how am I gonna do this? You're solving. I know, we might not think we're doing it. You're sort of doing it subconsciously. You're solving problems all the time. So I think that does give you skills to sort of bring into your everyday life of problem solving, really.
Adam, thank you very much for having us down. Thank you.
No problem.